Sure, he looks sweet now, let me tell you. These little paws, they're destructive. You can really feel textures of things when you put them on your face, but it's better to do it after you buy. Unless you want to be the person at the store rubbing yarn on your face, which I've definitely been that person before, so. Hello, my name's Katrina and welcome to Moonbelly Makes, where I share all of the projects that I love to make. Today's project is this epic wall hanging that I made for our living room. We had this old wall hanging that I made years and years ago when Josh and I first moved in together. I made it out of poster board and hot glue and it served its purpose. It was really beautiful for a long time, but over the years, someone has been nibbling on it. I won't name names, but his name is Pete. It was you, wasn't it? It was missing leaves and poster board doesn't last forever. It just starts to get yellow and it's dusty and it's just time for a new vibe. So I went into this project with a couple of needs. One was that I needed it to be big because I really wanted to replace like the large scale that big like flower had. Another need was that I wanted to use fabric, I wanted to use yarn, and I wanted to use stuff that I found outside. I've been collecting little bits from hiking and walking outside, and I really wanted those pieces to be interspersed in the fabric and in the yarn. But other than that, I really didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't have a plan. Luckily, I think it came out really great. So without further ado, here's how I did it. I wasn't even sure about which colors I wanted to use, so I decided to start with the things that stood out to me from my stash and take it from there. After gathering a few things, I got to sketching. I used my Pinterest board that I've been building for the past week or so as an inspiration for the sketch. I landed on a design that was fabric on top, with yarn weaving in the middle, and then more fabric at the bottom. The line at the top will be a big branch that the whole thing will hang from, and the circles at the bottom represent little yarn-covered hanging rings. Hi, I just ended up at the woods. You know, that happens sometimes. I'm not wearing the right shoes to go on a hike, and I also didn't bring my tape measure, but I do have my body and I know how tall I am, so that will work as a tape measure. But it's just such a beautiful day, and I felt like today was a good day to go foraging for supplies. I'm not even totally to the woods yet, and I found a stick that I think might work, but I'm gonna leave it here because it's gonna be on my way out if I don't find anything else. I don't think it's totally perfect. See what the woods want to give me. Pause for mushrooms. It's so cool. You're in a tree. Eh? I just don't know. It has like this fungus growing on it, and I don't want to bring that out of the woods really. Like it probably should be here. And also I don't really want to bring fungus into my house. I only watched one episode of The Last of Us, but that was enough. I'm gonna leave this one here for now. There's just gonna be like sticks along the side of the trail that I am gonna come back and see if I want. Or I want to try to reframe that. I'm gonna come back and see if they want to come home with me. This little patch has some cool looking things. Never mind. I liked those, but they all had like vines wrapping around. So I couldn't really pull anything out and felt like it was gonna make the whole thing topple over. So I just found this really long branch that has this like, do you see this like smaller branch? And I feel like that smaller one is like just kind of perfect. Just the way it's like laying along the trail, it just feels very inviting. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. This seems good, and it seems pretty dry and like relatively recently fallen, so it's not like decomposing just yet. So I'm gonna see if I can break off this smaller part. It's a lot taller than me. Are you gonna stay in my car? You're coming home with me. I do feel a little bit like a dog that found a stick and won't let go of it. So the next stop is the craft store, and I'm going to get some fabric printing ink, and I really need to decide on like a color story for this piece. Our living room isn't really like designed intentionally It's just like stuff that we had. I would love to design it intentionally. So maybe this is where I'm starting. But I have been super inspired by fall colors lately, like just picking up leaves and just like obsessing with them. I don't know why it took me coming out here to realize that I should do fall colors. What do you think? Like this one will give personality and this one will give more just like structure. I am nervous about the fungus on this one though, so maybe that should be my deciding factor. And also if we're thinking about fall colors, like this has that orangey wood underneath. I wonder what kind of trees these are. If you can identify what kind of trees these are, let me know. Okay, all right. This is really pretty. It doesn't have fungus on it. This color is gorgeous. Obviously, I like this color. It matches my jacket. Sold. Okay, last thing in the woods, as I'm walking out, there's these beautiful red branches from these bushes. And I'm not gonna take them because I don't think they'll like stay red over time. I just get this sense that they won't, but maybe I'm wrong. But either way, I'm not gonna take them. But I just want to take some inspiration. Like it's just, I don't even know if it's showing up how beautiful it is on camera. It's like luminous. It's so beautiful. Ooh, it's brisk outside. Fit though. So I got a few things at the art store. I got a very large sheet of soft cut printing block. Got this mustardy color of yarn, bright red roving with fibers before they are yarn. I also got inks at the store, but I'll show you those later. I still wish there was like a rust, but that's gonna have to happen another day. I'm in for the day. It's too cold outside. Yeah.
It's a good stick.
Okay, so now that I have supplies, most of my supplies, and a plan, most of a plan, go down. I think I'm gonna get to carving. But I definitely wanna do a circle here. I don't know if it's gonna have a raise like the sun, but definitely a circle there that's big. The sun is based on this reference photo. And then I wanna do these diamonds that are kind of on the more medium side. That is based on this reference photo. And then I want to do something small, which maybe will be at the bottom here. I kind of took this inspiration from this photo. So I think my first step is going to be carving out those diamonds. I drew my design onto the block with a Sharpie and then used my carving knives to cut away the background. To see this process more in depth, you can see the thank you cards that I made for our elopement, which is linked in the top corner for you right now. At first I thought it was just a big and a small diamond, but it turns out that the big diamonds actually came in two versions. One with thicker, straighter lines and one with thinner, slightly curvier lines. Well, it has been more than a few days since I have worked on this, and in the past few days of thinking about this, I've kind of separated out like the next steps into two categories. It always helps me to categorize things. So the first category is like small things. There's a little like woven thing that I want to do. I want to make like a little pouch for these red beans that I have from the garden, from my landlord's garden. And that would also be like keeping going with the stamp carving. So like that's category one, little things. Category two is like big picture. Like how am I even gonna hang this thing up? Do I have enough fabric? How am I going to place the fabric? How am I gonna make this thing? Like how am I gonna make the structure of it? And while the little things are feeling a little bit more exciting, I think they're gonna have to wait because my anxiety about the big things is kind of taking over. I'm gonna practice starting with the thing that's stressing me out instead of avoiding it. This is big. This is really big for me. I took the branch outside and flaked off the bark to reveal the golden wood underneath. It wasn't too tricky to get the bark off, but I did have to use a box cutter to get the more stubborn bits. I'm making an executive decision that this is too long. I know already that it's too long, but I'm gonna break it. I'm gonna try. Quite a bit shorter. 65 inches. give or take 66. Well, I think it's perfect. Okay, now what? I now know that the length of my branch, 66 inches. Excuse me. So I'm just gonna map it out on the floor with what I have, and then we can see what we think. Okay, it didn't help too much. It helped a little. I learned that I need more fabric. I have a little bit more, but not enough like for the second half below all the yarn. I've learned that I don't want to use white, so I need even more fabric. Another thing that I've learned is that this coral right here looks terrible. It doesn't work with everything else. Pete, can you stop? Thank you. But the other thing that I've learned is that I think I'm gonna love this when it's done. And that is the most important part. Means I'm barking up the right tree. I found a lot of really great stuff at the thrift store. I was looking for rust and tan, and I found a few great options. This was way more of a successful trip than I expected. I kind of prepared myself mentally to find like one thing that would work and then just get that. So I ended up not having a very discerning eye, and I got a lot. This was the first thing that I saw when I walked in. It is the exact right color. And I got 2 of these, which are curtains. I have an idea of what I'm gonna do with the rings. I'm not gonna throw them away. They're actually totally perfect for something I wanted to do anyways at the bottom. I also got this gold from the fabric department. They have like just kind of small bits of fabric at my thrift store, so this was $1 worth of gold fabric. I think it complements this gold that I already had. They're like siblings. How cool. Okay, this is a tablecloth. You know how much I love turning tablecloths into things. But this one has a really cool texture. I really like the texture of it. It just has like a thicker weave to it. Last but not least, I got this top from the clothing department. I just kind of looked through the tops to see if I could find anything that would kind of bring another color in, because both of the kind of bigger pieces are kind of similar. They're both maroon. Stop. So I found this, which is much more orangey. It's just a big shirt. Normally I would love a shirt like this, but it's like a microfiber and I cannot stand the texture, but I will happily have it hanging on my wall. It's just a really pretty color, and I like that it looks soft. Touching it feels horrific to me. I laid everything out again, this time with the new fabrics, and I felt like I finally had a good idea of how this thing was going to look. So if I want the whole thing to be about 50 inches from top to bottom, not including the rings hanging at the bottom, then I'm going to kind of separate it into thirds, but not really. The top third and the bottom third, I'm gonna have around 18 inches, and then the middle third, which is gonna be the weaving, is going to be more like 14 inches. This is super give or take because everything's wobbly, but it's a good kind of starting place, I think. I'm gonna take the lining of the curtain and use that as the backing. I'm just gonna draw on this to see exactly what size and shape I want for the top pieces at first. I'm just gonna start with that. After sketching out the shapes on the backing fabric, I loosely copied the sketch onto some tracing paper so that I could cut out templates for each of the individual pieces of fabric. I want to make it very clear that I have no idea what I'm doing. I am completely making this up. This is not tried and true. I think it's working, but I don't know what I'm doing. And then I cut the pieces out of the fabrics. So while I'm ironing here, I am thinking about what color I'm gonna do the diamonds on this yellow fabric. I'm leaning towards doing like a white. One of the main inspiration photos for this whole project is white on yellow. Can't really see it. I think the answer is gray. I just put the black like on top of the white that I had, and it made like a pretty dark gray. But I think it's really pretty. I was not expecting to like that. The other thing that's happened is I am protecting my table with a corrugated cardboard box. Even though like it looks like a flat box when I push down on it, I'm getting the design from the corrugation. Do we like that? I don't think so. I drew chalk guidelines and then printed all of the big triangles, alternating rows between the two types, rinsing off my hands as soon as they got any ink on them so as not to leave inky fingerprints everywhere. I let it dry overnight and then printed the small triangles with the rust color that I made by mixing red, yellow, and a touch of the black ink. I am obsessed with this. I love it so much. This is my new thing. I'm going to be printing on fabric for the rest of my life. I can tell, like, I love this so much. I'm putting together two things that I've already really loved to do. Working with fabric and also carving stamps for block printings. It didn't line up like as perfectly as I wanted to, but oh well. So now I'm gonna stitch all of these pieces for the top onto the backing. So I pinned all of the pieces onto the backing and stitched them down, and sadly it looked horribly lumpy. I don't know what possessed me to think that I didn't need to add interfacing. I ended up ripping out all of the stitching, which took about an hour, and then added piecemeal interfacing to all of the pieces before stitching them down for a second time. My goodness, it's been a very long time since I worked on this. Been sick for a couple weeks, feeling quite a bit better, and very excited to dive back in. I stitched down all of the pieces onto the backing. They didn't lay down totally flat, so I have this little white strip that I'm gonna need to deal with later. And while I was sick, I wove this little pouch that I'm very excited to put. I think I'm gonna put like a pine cone in it or something. I'm sorry I didn't film how I did this, but I followed this little like tutorial on Instagram. This is actually very fun. It was a very good like sick project when I had no brain and no energy. The other thing that happened is that I went on a walk, my first walk after I started like feeling better, and I came back with branches, which if you need to know anything about me, that's all you need to know about me. Remember how I loved those red branches that I saw at the woods? Those like red bushes? Oh, don't eat that. I found the same kind of bushes. They're kind of everywhere around here. You can sniff, but don't bite. I want to actually change my plan for how I'm gonna do the circle that's gonna be in the top left, because I'm using this like corrugated fabric and I didn't smooth it out, which I could have, but I purposely chose not to. I don't think I'm gonna be able to stamp on it. Like, I don't think that would look good. I think it's just gonna look messy. So I wanna go with this other inspiration of weaving these like branches through. Pete is freaking out about these branches. I cut tiny holes in the shape of the circle and added a little bit of fray check to each opening as I put the sticks in place. Happy. Love it. Holy smokes, it looks so good. So I made the top strip. Now I'm going to make the bottom strip, because I think connecting the yarn in between will be a lot easier if I can just do both sides at the same time. So I need to lay this out and decide which fabrics I'm going to use for the next part. I'm basically going to repeat the same kind of thing that I did for the top, just on the bottom. I'm gonna carve a stamp, do some stamping, and then piece down the fabrics that I'm going to use. I just think this is gonna be a lot simpler. The bottom. Ta-da! Really happy with how it turned out. I like that there's some linearness and some symmetry on the bottom. So the next step is I'm going to decide what curve this is gonna have, and then I'm going to put a backing on this and put a stronger backing on the top part, because it's gonna be holding everything. I don't think it's quite strong enough. I used this thick flannel as the backing and stitched all the way around with the piece inside out so that I could turn it the right way around and have nice, clean edges. Well, all of the fabric parts are done, which I'm very, very stoked about. So the next piece of this is to, oh, I can't ever remember which is which, but it's to string the, the yarns that go this way. I don't know if that's the warp or the weft. My neck and my knees are not thrilled, but it is done. It took about 2.5 hours, which is about an hour and a half longer than I thought it was going to take. I switched methods about halfway through, which ended up going a lot quicker, so that's good. And now I'm just gonna stitch it all down. All right, they're all stitched down and a little wobbly, so we'll see how it goes once I actually start weaving everything. Didn't quite come out as clean as I'd like, but it's okay. Also, all of those sticks fell out, so I'm going to actually glue them in place. And then that's gonna be the last thing that I do today. The next day, I laid the piece down on my table and weighed it down with a ton of heavy things and put on Project Runway to entertain me while I wove. For the dangly section, I wove a grid first so that I could use a crochet hook to include lots and lots of tassels. Overall, I wanted this section to have a variety of textures as well as scale, so I used yarn and fabric and the wool roving and a few branches as well. This process was spread out over several days, but eventually it was all filled in. I love how this turned out. Like, I truly, truly love it. The colors, the textures, I added in some little sticks. This pocket will have the pine cone in it. I'm gonna put in a little bit more yarn right here, but this open patch, I'm going to glue some bark down, but it's kind of fragile, so I'm waiting to the last minute. So that's why that part looks open. And I've already trimmed this, but I need to trim it more and again because it's kind of like a curly haircut. If you have curly hair, it seems like everything is lined up and then you tousle it and there's weird long strands hanging out that need to be dealt with. Come here. Okay, the weaving part is done. And next I'm going to take these curtain rings. These are just from the top of the like tan curtain. And I'm gonna take the metal parts out, wrap them in yarn, rub them in some pepper powder so that Pete doesn't try to eat them all the time when they're up on the wall. And then I'm just gonna stitch them or glue them. One or the other across the bottom. So we're coming to the end of this project and I'm kind of sad because this has been really fun, but also I'm excited because then I get to put it up and do something else. So it's all covered to protect it from the kitties. I made the little rings. They came out better than I could have imagined. I don't know how I would have done this otherwise. I was maybe thinking cardboard, but that feels a little, you know, cardboard. This is metal. And I did bend one of them, so it's not that sturdy, but at least they're very, very uniform, which I think would have been harder to do with cardboard. I was thinking I would use this yarn for the ties at the top. It's like a fabric yarn, but that feels like you're not really gonna see it very much, and it maybe is like a little bit of a waste. So I don't know, but also it's really cool, and this would be a cool thing to do with it. And this is innovative, expressive, and individual. It says so right there. Maybe I should do something else with it. I don't know. Stay tuned. Okay, these are all stitched down now, just with this little top stitch. They look a little wacky now, but hopefully they'll look, they'll make sense once it's hanging. Okay, it's time to figure out how to attach well, I already figured it out. It's time to tell you how I figured out how I'm gonna attach this stick to the top of the hanging. So there are kind of two ways I was thinking of doing it. I was thinking I could either make little ties or make loops. And if I was gonna do the ties, it would end up looking like this, like a little bow on top. It looks pretty bad, especially imagine like a ton of them. I'm going to make loops and stitch them down and it'll look like that. I can't believe how close this is to being done. Okay, this is literally moment of truth time. Let me go a little lower for that. Moment of truth time. Oh, I mean, that's the vibe. Feeling real proud. Feeling real happy about it. Doing what I wanted it to do. It's the big day. This is coming down. Oh. Okay. It's up there. It's working. It looks good. It's not totally perfect. It's still a little wobbly, but that's fine. So I'm going to do some finishing touches, add the last little embellishments, and then I'll let you see it. After going to the hardware store and getting 2 strips of wood, I took it off the wall and glued 1 strip to the top and 1 to the bottom. I decided to use some dark green nail polish to paint my hooks so they wouldn't stand out as much, and then adjusted the yarn loops at the top by pulling the loose ones taut and securing them with hot glue. We hung it up again on the newly green hooks, and then voila! I am obsessed with how it looks, both from a distance and close up. I added the red beans I had mentioned earlier in a little line on this side, plus some other cute bits like this walnut shell and these adorable pine cones. I think this should be the picture in the dictionary next to maximalism, and I couldn't love it more. Well, I hope you enjoyed following along for this epic process. It was quite a journey. It took a lot longer than I thought it would, which is totally fine because it turned out exactly like how I wanted it to. It's very unlike me to go into something like without a plan, so I'm glad I practiced that and something beautiful came out of it. It really changes the vibe in here, and I can't wait to do more in this room and make it just a little bit more intentional. So again, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more stuff that I'm doing, you know what to do, and I hope to see you next time. Okay, love you, bye!